Okay, play, Teddy. Thank you. You can play it, Teddy. Thanks.
Hashtag Bangon Pilipinas. Blackwater would like to support our heroes of the front line who are risking their health and well-being to attend to COVID-19 patients. We aim to provide the frontliners of the Pasig City General Hospital hygiene kits which they can use daily. Blackwater, smell good, feel good. This webinar series is brought to you by Hoop Coaches International in cooperation with Blackwater. Smell good, feel good. This coaching webinar series would like to give special thanks to the following. Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas Coaches Commission Head, Coach Jong Yochiko. Basketball Coaches of the Philippines President, Coach Louis Gonzalez. Got Skills Head, Coach Alan Ricardo, and frontliner Christopher Top Juliano.
Good afternoon, coaches. Again, I'm thrilled to be presenting again today with our special guests. And with us again is Dr. Teddy Villasor, our sports psychologist, our resident sports psychologist. And all the way from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, my favorite broadcaster, Ben Ibrahim. Ben Ibrahim, take over.
Thanks very much, Coach. Welcome, coaches, to this wonderful webinar. And today we're very lucky to have the time of Coach ANDREJ LEMANIS from all the way from Australia. For those of you who are not aware of Coach ANDREJ, he is obviously from Australia and he's coached in Australia for a very long time in the NBL, coach with the Brisbane Bullets, two-time NBL Coach of the Year, three-time NBL champion, and he's coached the Brisbane Bullets. He's also coached in New Zealand, and he's coach of the very famous Australian Boomers team. For those of you who are unaware, the Boomers are the Australian men's national basketball team. As you all know, Australian men's basketball has come leaps and bounds over the years, not just producing good talent, but international talent. We see the likes of Andrew Bogut, Joe Ingles, Paddy Mills, and Australia is a really good feeding ground, not just for the NBA and other international competitions, but also American college basketball. And one man who's been very instrumental to that continued success is Coach ANDREJ. So Coach ANDREJ, thank you so much for giving up your time, for being with us here today. And very simple and straightforward today, like I said, like a Starbucks conversation, just present, you know, Boomers basketball, and you've got some videos and stuff, some stuff to share with us. And then later, in about half an hour, we'll have some Q&A for all the coaches to ask questions from all around the world. So without further ado, over to you, Coach ANDREJ.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for inviting me in and having me on. And it's always a privilege and a pleasure to be able to speak on a webinar like this and share with other coaches. And certainly from my experience through my career, it's the ability to exchange and share ideas that lead to lots of learning. So a couple of things I always say is that if you have any questions or anything, please go ahead and fire them through. I'm not sure quite how, I guess they fire them through to you guys, and then you will coordinate the asking of those questions. And then the other thing I always say is the beauty of, I guess, any sport, but in particular basketball, is just it's a game of opinion. There is no right or wrong. Because I say something, it doesn't make it right. It just makes it my opinion. So take what you like and throw out what you don't like, and use it to make your own teams and your own journey better. So I guess I just thought I'd start a little bit talking about the journey with the Boomers. And one of the areas I guess I get some credit for is being able to build culture within our teams. And I know a lot of people, a lot of teams talk about culture, and for me, it's an area that needs investment, and it needs significant investment if you're going to try to make it impactful. And so when I was assistant coach with the Boomers 2009 and 2012 London Olympics, we got knocked out in the quarterfinals by the USA. And then I was very fortunate to be appointed the head coach in 2013. And at that point, Australia, for the first time, I think, in over 20 years, went back to having a full-time national coach. Prior to that, we'd, the head coach of the national team had coached in club competition through the season. But for the first time in 20 years, as I said, full-time national coach who was also responsible for trying to lead the high-performance system on the men's side of the game throughout Australia. So what I did have was the opportunity to spend a lot of time researching, looking at video, doing, getting through the statistics and all those sorts of things about international competition, and built some ideas and thoughts around how we might be able to take the next steps to try to get that elusive medal that we just still haven't been able to get in the men's competition. And unfortunately, that's still true. We finished fourth twice. But going back to the culture piece, I guess in 2013, when I first took over, at that stage, we had to qualify for the World Cup in 2014 to be held in Turkey. Yes, no, Spain. And in that stage of qualifying, Australia and New Zealand basically got automatic passage through to the 2014 World Cup, because two teams from Oceania got to qualify at that point. And so traditionally, the guys who play in the NBA didn't play in that particular qualifying period, because they took that opportunity to have their one off season with their families and do all those sorts of things. And when I first got the job, I rang the key guys, and we spoke about a lot of things. And one of the things I spoke to them about was that I understand this is a time that they would normally take off, but I'd like them to just come in and give us 3 days, just 3 days where we sit together and we spend some time as a team mapping out the next 4 years to the 2016 Olympics in Rio. And to their credit, the guys did that. We came in, we spent a lot of time together on also, a whole range of things, including health and how we might be able to service them and help them and do all those sorts of things. But each day we spent at least 2 hours as a team going through building our team trademark and culture and what we stood for. And we get somebody in to go ahead and facilitate that. And it's a very interesting process that leads to us coming out with a team trademark and a value statement that we can hold each other accountable to. And I guess I'll just share one of the things that we do in that particular, I've done this with many teams, and one of the things that we always do, which is an interesting thing, just with a group. And hopefully you guys can see the whiteboard here. Let me know if you can't see the whiteboard. But there's a thing called the relationship pyramid, and it's split into 5, right? And the first stage of any relationship we call the grunt stage. Okay, so the grunt stage is, I lived in my same address for 4 years. The guy across the road on Tuesday night takes out his bin, I take out my bin, and I give him a wave. This is where our relationship sits. It's at a grunt stage. The next stage, and we're trying to move down the relationship ladder, is stuff. So now I start building my relationship with somebody, and we just start talking about the weather, things like that, things that are absolutely of no consequence to either him or me to share. Then the third stage is we start talking about others, or in the third person. Did you see, Johnny? I know Johnny. Johnny's got, Johnny got a new coaching job. Isn't it good for him? Wonder what he's going to run. And we start sharing about common people and things that we know. But again, we're really not giving much of ourselves in that situation, but our relationship's getting a little bit better. Then this is where the gold is in terms of a team. We start moving down, and this starts to show trust, is when we start talking about ourselves, about this is what I'm planning, these are some of the things that I'm trying to achieve, some of the goals that I've set for myself. And so you start opening yourself up and making yourself vulnerable to the people that, or the person that you are sharing with. And then, yep, somebody have a question? No. And then the last bit is getting down to feelings. And that's again where we really start to become vulnerable and open ourselves up to our colleagues or teammates or people within our group, and shows a level of trust, because now you have information that you can use against me if you choose to. And so start talking about, I'm feeling anxious about the upcoming tournament, or I don't know how we're going to deal with this, or all those sorts of things. And so one of the things that we do as a team in this process is, once we've established the relationship period and what it looks like, then we go through and give everybody, that pyramid. And I have to meet with every player, and I write where I think they fit on the relationship pyramid with me, and they also write where they fit where I fit in the relationship pyramid with them. And it's a very interesting process just to start to understand where each of the relationships are, and in particular how you can allocate some time and put in some work to try to get to a place where we're able to share and communicate ideas with each other for the good of the team, understanding that we have each other's backs, I guess, at the end of the day, and trust each other. So that's always one of the interesting processes that we do. As I said, it ends up getting to a point where we get to a value statement, and the one for the Boomers that we ended up with this year, in 2013, was, the letters were tracks. And so I won't tell you what the words stand for, because we've agreed to keep that secret to our team, but you can, I'm sure you can guess what some of the words are. Like, every time I've done this, there's obviously some words that end up relating to, how we want to look after each other, or the closeness of the team, how hard we want to play, the unity of the group, those sorts of things. And so once we formed that value statement and the words that sat underneath it, then that really drove who we were for the next 4-year period to the 2016 Rio Olympics. And so any messaging that we had as a team, obviously everyone's all around the world throughout the year, trying to stay in connection and contact with, sort of monthly updates and those sorts of things. And we'd always write tracks on the bottom of it, just again to remember the commitments that everybody made to the team. As part of that as well, tracks started to form how I would implement the game plans. So when we go into a game, let's say one of the qualities that would be combative. And it's like, all right, well, what does combative actually look like when you start playing? It's like setting a good screen. It's boxing out, like these sorts of things that we would need to execute in order to be that team that we said that we wanted to be. And so I think that having that actually established gives you a reference point that you can keep going back to. The fact that you include the group in it, I think or that we included the group in it, I think is an important piece to it, because otherwise I've found if you come in and just say, this is who we're going to be, this is how we need to play to be successful, then it is the coach's viewpoint without the collaboration of the team. And so the team can either choose to buy in or not buy in, particularly when things are going poorly, because then they can say, well, this was your idea, coach. We didn't think that this was going to work anyway. And so, of course, now it's not going to work. Whereas if the players are involved in the process and they come up with the words and who they want to be, they feel much greater responsibility as well to make that work and to hold themselves accountable to it. And so I think the player inclusion in that is a very important piece to making the whole thing work and be successful. As we went through the journey, I think one of the other things that happened in 2013, which was very interesting, was that we, as a group then, because in 2015, again, we had a qualification period where we had to qualify for the Olympics in 2016. And again, that was one, traditionally, the guys in the NBA had sometimes sat that one out as well. I guess there was a certain level of confidence that we would be able to qualify without those guys. So some of them took the opportunity to take that break, and I guess two things happened in 2013 that gave a greater commitment to 2015. Is firstly, I spoke to how good New Zealand was, and the fact that the qualification system had changed. It had become a 2-game series, 1 game at home, 1 game away, cumulative points, so there's significant risk around it. And particularly if Steve Adams played for New Zealand, that would be a real challenge for us having to deal with that. And the other thing is we presented for those teams that had won medals at Olympics and World Championships, there was a consistency of the core of the group playing together year after year. And I think, the teams like Spain and France and those teams that have won medals had 7 to 8 guys that had played at least 4 or 5 years together leading into those tournaments. And as Australia, we didn't have that. We had, 2 guys here for 2 years and then 3 here, and we'd constantly chopped and changed our group. And so as part of that 2013 meeting, the guys all looked at each other and sort of all made the commitment. They said, if we're healthy, we're all playing, right? 2014 World Cup, we're playing. 2015 qualification, we're all playing. In 2016, we're playing the Olympics. And with that as well, what we presented was the fact that for Australia to try and achieve something they've never done before, we needed to change things up. And so one of the things we identified was that Australia had never won, since 1996 had not won the first game at a World Cup or an Olympics, which put us behind the 8 ball right from the opening game of the tournament, which was difficult to recover from. So in order to try and overcome that, we suggested a strategy that we wanted to go and play the best European teams. That they're the ones that you needed to overcome to try to get the medal. And so we identified Spain, France, Lithuania, Serbia, in particular Croatia, and that we would want to go and play those teams as part of the lead up. The reality was that those teams were not going to come to Australia, and we would need to go and play them in their home countries. But that required time, and that required an extra commitment. And so again, part of the meeting in 2013 from the team was, how much time will you guys give us? This is normally your off season. You spend time with, normally you spend time with your families. How much of that time are you guys prepared to give up to truly go and chase this medal? And again, so we sat down as a team and put together that schedule on what it looks like and when the guys would come in and when they would have breaks, so that we knew 3 years in advance, but also they'd been part of the planning process, so that again, there was a commitment to it. And I found that very helpful and beneficial on the way through. Some of the other things I guess stand out in my mind was we found it helpful enough and beneficial enough that in 2016, when we went in the preparation phase for the Olympics, we kept, or we took the facilitator, the guy who ran the sessions for our culture. He came with us on the tours, and he did a lot of work around the edges with the group, just meeting with players, having a coffee with them, suggesting to them some of the things that we might want to try. They may want to try as a team, like how to get to someone, how to bring somebody else in, what he'd seen at practice, what do you think, all those sorts of things. And sometimes to me as a coach as well, he'd say, hey, Dre, I just need an hour. We need an hour with the team. We just want to revisit with some of this stuff. And some of the things we'd do is go and break into a group, and he'd give us, sort of some questions to ask, and, how do you think we're going on these things that we, give us 2 things that we want to keep doing, or sorry, 2 things that we're doing really well right now and we should keep doing, and give us 2 things that we need to improve on as a team. And we'd share that amongst all the groups, and then also just individual feedback. So, the players would give me feedback as well. So, 3 players that I was split up with, one of the things that they were tasked with is, so, 2 things that they like that I'm doing right now, and 2 things that they think I, would be beneficial if I changed or added or could help them with. And so that was, again, a really good process to keep communication, stay connected with the team, and in a way, like, get to put out any fires before they became significant issues. And I guess just the last one to touch on is in 2015, after we qualified for the Olympics, we came back as a team and spent an extra day together. Normally, again, everybody would sort of go straight after that second game, but we said, no, we'll come back to Australia and invest a little bit more time in this. And we, again, met as a team with the facilitator, and it was, I think, a really key moment with, as part of that, we were, talking about what we were prepared to commit to over the next 12 months and what that would look like. And all the talk at that point had been, in order to achieve Australia's first ever medal, is, we were going to do these things. And after one of the times we split up, we came back, and one of the groups stood up and said, hang on, I think we need to change the rhetoric here. We're not going to win a medal, we're going to go and win a gold medal. And I think that was a really key moment in terms of just the mindset of the group, the belief of the group, and what it did was drive behaviours. And, I'm not sure how much you guys followed the Boomers prior to 2016, but there was a lot made of the fact in the All-Star break in 2016, when all our Australian-based NBA guys, would normally go on holiday, they all chose to come together and spend their NBA All-Star break together. Yes, they took their families, but they spent time together and just connecting and reminding each other about that we had a bigger mission in that year at the Olympics that we were trying to achieve, and that we're all prepared to commit to that. And when they first came into Australia, again, before camp started, the group went and spent time 3 days together out at Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia, and just connecting with each other in the, I guess, the piece of the outback countryside, and just again spent a lot of time. And none of that happens, I don't think, unless we provide the environment for those things to happen. And I think it again showed itself and perhaps shone through in the Olympic tournament. We won the first two games. We beat France, we beat Serbia, and they're tough games for us, and games that in the past we'd perhaps not been able to quite get over the line on, and we've been able to do that. And game three, we played the USA, and we played them tough. We for 3.5 quarters we were right there, and actually should have probably won that game, and we didn't. And Carmelo Anthony made some big threes and got them over the line. And back in Australia, I know it was the crowd was going nuts, and everybody was so happy that we got that close. And the Australian reporter pulled up Bogues after the game and said, "Oh, you guys did a great job. You must be really pleased with that effort against the USA." And he's like, "No, we lost. That's not what we're about. We're here to win a gold medal, and that's not acceptable." And in that moment, again, just I think won over the Australian public, because we had a focus as a team and a direction as a team. We knew what we were there for, and we were prepared to speak to that and believe in it and present ourselves as that. So I think for all those reasons, having that culture was really important for us. And again, it does, for the feedback that I get, one of the things that people liked about the 2016 team and the 2019 team with the Boomers was the way that we played together and played as a team and shared the ball, and people put their egos away and played in the best interest of the group. And again, I think just having this framework allows you, or gives you more opportunity to play that way. You can obviously have teams that play very well together without it, but it also enables you to have an environment where, again, you can talk to, well, what do we stand for as a group, and what does that mean, and what's your contribution to it, and how does that look on the court? And invariably, it means the guys are sacrificing for the good of the team, and passing up a shot in order to get the best shot for the team. Understanding that they need to set screens and get other people open, make the extra pass, and even play some defense occasionally. So yeah, so that's my little bit on culture. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on that before I move on. I'm happy. I know people are always intrigued by the flow offense as well that we ran at the Boomers, but I do have a few clips on that, but happy to answer any question on culture if anyone's got anything that they want to.
Yes, there's
Coach,
some questions, Teddy.
yeah, Coach, this might be related to culture. Could you as a 3-time NBL champion and your time with the Boomers, could you kindly give us 5 qualities that the coach should possess in order to be successful? Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? And part of that is how do you define success as a coach? And I think that's something that's important for each coach to do for themselves, is because nobody else can tell you what success looks like for you. You need to define what success looks like for yourself. And so one of the things that people often talk, again, you get introduced here as a 3-time NBL championship coach, and winning the championships and all that. Of course, that's good, and you find some joy in that as a coach, and you feel like a little bit of success. But for me, the reason I coach, or what I get the joy out of truly, and what I feel is successful, is seeing players go on and achieve their own goals and dreams and aspirations, and thinking that perhaps I had a small part to play in that. And so one of the examples I give there is, there's a player by the name of Peter Crawford, and when I was an assistant coach first in the Australian National League, I got a job up in Townsville as an assistant, my first time in the league, and we held tryouts, and the local guys showed us all the best young kids in the area, and these are the ones that you should look at. And there's this court here was the good kids, and that court over there was the ones that sort of just showed up. And we kept looking over at that other court, and there's this guy. It's like, oh, who's that? Oh, he's Peter Crawford. He hasn't never made any of the local national state teams or anything like that. Don't worry. We need these kids over there. And as the couple of days went on, we kept saying, no, that kid's the one. He's got a good basketball body. He seems to have the tools. He just needs a bit of coaching. And so as it turns out, we end up giving Peter a development spot on that team. He was allocated to me. I was his workout coach, and he was one of those guys that just drove himself. He was like, Dre, I need some extra workouts. Dre, I need to, work on my shot. You need to find me something. Dre, I need some more ball handling drills. He was just on me all the time about trying to help him to get better. And so he progressed from development player to, he got a roster spot, and then he ended up starting for us. And I guess it came full circle when in 2012, as an assistant coach now with the Boomers, I was in the room when the head coach told him, congratulations, Peter Crawford, you're representing Australia at the Olympic Games. And it sort of came full circle. And for me, I got a tremendous amount of, I guess, pride out of that, to see the elation on his face and think that I'd maybe helped him a little bit. Obviously, most of the investment and journey was driven by him, but I had a little bit to do with that success for him. And so that would be, I guess, one of the qualities for me is you got to care. You have to care. You have to care about your players and be prepared to invest some time. And I guess with that is the second thing that I talk to would be, you can't be in it for yourself. If you're doing it for the money or fame or any of those sorts of things, you're in it for the wrong reasons, and I don't think you're going to be successful. You have to do it to basically to help others. It's a tremendous privilege that you have as a coach. You have the opportunity to influence positively the lives of those people that you interact with, and those people that you coach, and that's a tremendous responsibility. But a tremendous honor and opportunity. And I think you need to honor that and take your joy and success out of that. I think you need to be calm. The game is chaotic, it's passionate. And at the end of the day, your job is solely to keep making decisions in the best interest of the team. And I think it's very hard to do that if you're caught up with the emotion of the game. And obviously we all, we're there, that's why we do it, we love it, we love the passion and we're into it. But you need to find a way to stay calm through all of that, and so that you can have a clear head and think. And I think one of the things that's interesting for me is I often watch coaches and how they're interacting with the referees, and you can see, I think sometimes when coaches start to lose their focus on the game because they get so involved with the referees that they can't possibly now be helping their team anymore by making good, calm decisions. And so I think that ability to stay calm. And I know this is probably only four qualities, but it's my last one that I have, is I think you need a thirst for knowledge. Just you need to want to keep learning, keep getting better. The game keeps evolving. You need to keep evolving. Read. Congratulations to all the coaches who are on this, webinar. Like, that's what it's about. Just keep trying to find more knowledge, and keep evolving through that knowledge. So that would be my 4, I guess. Sorry about
That's
that.
the 4, Coach.
Great.
Coach,
Great.
Coach, on your reverse triangle, this is a follow-up question. I can't make out the first 2 things that you wrote. It's
Up the
behind
top?
you. Yeah.
Sorry, does that come through backwards for you guys? Because it's
No, it's all right.
It's fine. It's fine.
the top one is grunt,
Grunt.
and the second one is stuff. So first stage we just grunt at each other, yep, as I pass you in the street, and the second one is stuff. So we talk about like the weather, those sorts of things.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Ben, can you ask the first questions for our
Yep.
from our
Coach,
coaches?
just as one of the questions came from Emerito about in terms of how to manage your team, and it's very similar to what you were saying about culture. You set the team up in terms of to try to win an Olympic gold medal and all that. But Emerito was saying that it brought up a very good point in the sense that you guys don't have a lot of time when the boomers come. Like you only have about a couple of weeks time to prepare. So from a cultural point of view, from a physicality point of view, from a structural point of view, how do you sort of get the team together in that short window to get everybody to buy in to the technical and non-technical things to achieve the journey of getting the Olympic gold medal?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. Time is definitely a challenge in the international environment, and that's why I think things like having a structured system whereby we're actually going to talk about culture and we establish this, and I guess that's we're trying to build it over the course of the 4 years as well, even though we've only got 2 weeks here and 3 weeks there. Cumulatively, we've probably got about 12 weeks together if we can get everybody to commit to each of those windows. And that's why in 2013, we spent some time, we took the 3 days to actually establish our culture and what's that mean and what's that look like in actions. So that now when we come together in 2014 and we've only got, 3 weeks together and then we're playing for our lives in the tournament, in day one, part of, the first session is sitting down saying, now, remember, this is who we are. We talked about tracks. This is what it means. For any new guys, this is how we arrived there. Has anyone got anything they want to add? Is it still relevant? Spend a couple of hours on that. And that, I guess then gives us that framework that can sit through the campaign, and we can just keep referring back to it and saying, touch on it maybe once a week. How are we going with this? Is it this, are we displaying these characters that we said that we wanted to do? And so that's, I guess, setting the foundation and then having that go through the whole 4-year campaign rather than trying to establish it every time you get together as a team, or trying to come up with it every time you get together as a team. I think that was that's important. And then in terms of, I guess, the offensive and defensive philosophies, that's, you just got to pick what your because of the limited time, you got to pick the couple of key things that you're going to try to stand for and be good at, and put your time into those. Obviously, we also put together videos, terminology charts, all those sorts of things. And as the players start to finish in their club programs, disseminate that information. Remember, this is who we are. This is what we run. This is the terminology. This is what it means for us. Any questions, let us know before you come into camp. And the other, I guess, one of the things that we spoke about as a group is, like, as the players, you're all professionals. It's your responsibility to come into camp in shape. We're not going to use camp to get you in the shape. We're 3 weeks out from playing our first game. We don't have time to get you in the shape. So we'll help you if you need some help prior to camp, set up programs, get the trainers, get you courts, get you workout coaches, whatever you need. We'll help you with that. But once you come into camp, you need to be ready to go. And we're not going to do any fitness testing. Like, from every moment that we spent on court was spent on basketball. None of it was just spent, we never did any shuttle runs or fitness testing or anything like that. So it was all just spent on basketball. And again, there's and I think one of the things with the flow offense, hopefully why it's had some success over time, is it's not you have to come down and execute these particular plays. It's not like you have to remember a whole bunch of plays. It's here's a foundation, and from here, use your basketball IQ and play basketball. Read what's in front of you, read the defense, and then we'll go from there, and we'll live with whatever happens from those situations. And so hopefully that adds to an environment where guys can come in and play to who they are and their strengths. And again, that's the job of the coach, particularly it's the job of a coach, right, in any environment, but particularly in a national team, is most of the guys pick themselves in a national team. If Paddy Mills is fit and available, he's getting selected. If, Joe Ingles is fit and available, he's getting selected. Like, that's just how it is. And so as the coach, you then need to understand, these are the players that I have. How do I put them in a system where they have the best opportunity to use their skill sets and be successful? And so, club team, when you're recruiting, sometimes you can manipulate that a little bit more and recruit players that you think fit how you want to play. In a national team, I think it's the other way around. It's the players, the best players, you're going to pick them, and then you need to find as a coach a way to utilize their strengths the best.
That was excellent. Excellent point on the conditioning. I think we need to tell ANDREJ Blatch about it. But Coach Jimmy Alapag is with us. That is one of our great players, and now he's a head coach of Alab Pilipinas. Coach Jimmy, do you have a question for Coach ANDREJ here?
Oh, sure. How you doing, Coach? Appreciate the time.
No worries, my pleasure.
Coach, I'm in my. I just finished, even though our season finished short this year because of the virus, obviously. I just finished my third season. Here's my question for you. How important is it for you when putting a team together? Are you more based on looking at talent, or is it more looking at the character and the work ethic?
Yeah, it's always that's an interesting mix, isn't it? It's obviously character and work ethic are really important. You have enough battles in a team just against your opposition. You don't need battles within your own team as well, right?
Absolutely.
Certainly character. And we've all been in teams where one individual has just wrecked the entire culture of the group, and it's made it miserable for everybody. There's no doubt that we've all been in teams like that, and it's better just not to have those guys. The thing I'll always say with it, though, is we need to be a little bit careful, because like my dad's a great guy, but he's not going to help us win a lot of basketball games. So you need talent to win as well. One of the things I say as a coach when I'm in coaching seminars is there's not a big secret. If you want to be a good coach, get good players. If you want to be a great coach, get great players. And so we certainly rely on the skill level of our players. But one of the things, and perhaps let me draw something else here, we utilize a little bit is we just use this sort of X here. And if, say, this is talent and this is character. So if someone's highly talented and of great character and sit up here, that's an easy choice, right? Like, that's easy choice. He's in the team. If someone is terrible character and terrible talent, that's also an easy choice. Just go.
Peace out.
we don't want you on the team. So that's an easy choice. If someone's really talented, but their character's, average, then it's change or leave. So you need to change your character or get out of here. And so how long you give them the change is sort of up to you. And obviously, if you're looking to recruit them into your team, then it's a case of trying to find out as much as you can about the challenges of their character and, you know, understanding the strength of your group. And if you've got more play, you know, if you have a lot of players here, if you have 4 or 5 players here as strong, then maybe we can help them bring them along. If we're more got guys sort of on the line, then maybe we can't risk bringing him in. And then the other one, if someone's really strong character, but just not quite talented enough, then it's improve or leave. And again, we're going to help you with your skills and all that, but you need to improve your skill set. We really like what you're doing from a character perspective, but you need to get up the line. And again, you know, we will plot our guys and sort of see, and obviously, you know, we've found over time that if you can get, you know, 4 guys in this, 4 out of 12 in this, got a pretty good squad. So,
Got it.
but yeah, it's always one of those tough calls, and I think it's doing the research and trying to understand what the character issues are, and understanding the strength of your current group. And that's why, again, I like having those culture sessions, because when you bring somebody into it, firstly, they get an education in it, but part of the first session in a year is this is what we stand for. Is it still relevant? And they have a chance to have some input into that. And then when you're holding each other to account, it's not saying that I think you're a bad person. You're saying you're not acting in the way that we agreed to act as a team. And so you're going outside the behaviors. And so you're talking about the behaviors and not the person, which is sometimes, you know, people are more accepting of that. But it's a universal question in team sport. There is no magic answer.
That's why all the coaches that had you, Jimmy, got a luxury because you know, you're a great character and a great player.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate that. Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome. Hopefully it helps.
There's more questions from our attendees. Ben, can you go through them? Or Teddy? Any? Hello?
I'm here, Coach.
Okay.
Julio has a question. How important are the team captains in driving or negating the team's culture? Thank you.
Yeah,
sorry.
and that's
just stop you there, Coach Andre and everybody. So, Coach Andre, what I'm just going to do right now, I'm just going to throw you if you've got a pen and paper there, just throw you just a series of questions, just short form, and then I'll write it down as well, and then so nobody's questions are sort of left out, and then you can just keep referring to that and just keep the flow going of the conversation rather than what's the next question? What's the next question? Yeah, is that okay?
Sure.
Coach can see the questions also from his screen, so I think we'll just feed the questions as we go along, because we cannot answer everything.
Yeah.
So, Coach. So, Teddy, go on with your question first.
This question is from Coach Julio. How important are team captains or team captain in driving or negating the team's culture? Thank you.
Yeah, and that's been an interesting one in that I actually don't have a team captain, because my theory has been, and again, this is in conjunction with the guy who takes the leadership sessions for us, or the culture sessions for us, is that if you have a captain, then it's easy for guys to hide behind the fact that it's not their responsibility. Oh, I'm not the captain, so I don't have to do anything about that. I know I've seen someone go outside of our values and behaviors, but that's not for me to say anything about, because I'm not the captain, and it's only the captain and the coach that need to deal with that. And so what we tried to establish is the fact that everybody has a responsibility to be a leader, and everybody leads in different ways as well. Like some people lead by just the way they play. I just play really hard. That's what I do. Other people lead in the locker room by how they communicate and connect the group, or, you know, get on top of some behaviors that they don't like or do like, and all those sorts of things. Other guys lead in terms of being social, like, you know, hey, let's all go out. I feel like we need to go together as a team now and have a meal. Like, let's just connect over a meal and a coffee and play some cards together. So other people might lead by saying, hey, we've been in the nightclub. It's 11 o'clock. Let's get out of here. We all got practice tomorrow. Let's make sure we all get home and get some rest. Like, people lead in different ways, and we try to create an environment where everybody is felt the responsibility, but also the opportunity to lead in the areas in which they're strong. So I know by the FIBA rules, you have to have a captain. So we just, on the score sheet, I just changed.
You just click on the competition. All right, that's an excellent point of view for it. Or there's there's some more questions on.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Was this Coach Andre? Maybe you can tell us in terms of, like, again, I think a lot of the things that we talk about today will relate back to culture and team environment in terms of preparation for your games against, the Frances and the Spains and the Lithuanias of this world. In terms of, as they say in coaching, athletes, regardless whether they're young or older, they'll only remember one or two things, in training and everything. And, could you tell us about your coaching style from a basketball point of view, in terms of when you have the players together, you have different, like you said, a fit Joe Ingles, a fit Patty Mills, a fit whoever would go straight into the team, no questions asked. But sometimes you don't have to, you don't have that luxury, so you have to change the way that you play. So generally, I know this is a bit of a generic question. What was the Boomers' way of playing basketball, in terms of, and taking into consideration that you want to communicate those two messages per training session to get those two things perfect on game day against the top-notch teams. But saying that, everything's about defensive reinforcement these days into the player's mindset. How do you balance that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's it's a long answer.
Yeah. Sorry for the long question, but I didn't know how to shorten it. Yeah.
Long question, but also a long answer. I think culture comes down to some of it. Again, we've established how we want to play, and so you can coach around those themes all the time. Like, in terms of, again, if we're going to be tough, like, how is this action tough? Even defensively, like, how is what you're doing right now reflect who we said we want to be as a team? How is that actually being tough defensively? And so I think that's forms a section of it for sure. In terms of how you play, I think.
Was there any one particular style, like one style that you were trying to get the team to adopt, so the next window of players would understand it? Because players talk to each other.
That's why we're going to his flow offense and how he runs it. That's that I think, and he mentioned building the culture.
What I can say though is one of the things we did do was talk about a framework offensively and defensively. So offensively, we break the shot clock up into 3 phases. First 8 seconds, middle 8 seconds, last 8 seconds, and we called it pace, poise, and penetration. And in each of those segments, these are the sorts of shots that we're trying to get in each of those segments. And this is how we can get it out of the flow offense. And defensively, again, the 3 things we wanted to be was we wanted to be disruptive on the defense. So it started with defensive transition. So when we shot it, we need to be great in defensive transition. And what does that mean? And how does that look? We wanted to be disruptive. And what does that mean? It doesn't just mean being a 94 feet defensive team. It means just being smart. And sometimes disruptive can be understanding the other team, 90% of their offense, they dribble down and pass it through their reversal post, and saying, well, all right, we're going to deny the reversal post in this game. Finding some way just to be painful to play against. And then 3 is finishing with rebounding, boxing out. And so I guess just having those set sort of criteria is something that we could reference consistently. And then, it's interesting. Perhaps one of the areas where I'm a little bit different to a lot of coaches, and particularly a lot of, I guess, like college coaches and things like that, is one of the, when I became the full-time national coach and I moved to Canberra, one of the things I had access to there was skill acquisition experts, and I'd never spent time with them before. And a lot of what we spoke about was the coach's responsibility was to just create an environment where players could figure out the answer for themselves. And that too often as coaches, we step in and try to take control of situations that that ultimately doesn't help the players figure things out for themselves. And so as a coach, I'm always mindful of that perhaps less is more from a coaching perspective, and that let the players play, watch them play, and only step in on significant areas that after, once you go, actually, they're just not getting this. And so the biggest one defensively is pick and roll defense. I think that's the one, right? That's where the game keeps right. Everyone's running pick and rolls. It's like, who are we on pick and roll defense, and what does that look like? And so once you have your schemes around that, it's like, all right, we keep refining it, and like, this is what it should look like. Let them see if they can figure it out, and after a while, you need to step in and make sure that bit's right. Same transition. After a while, you need to step in and make that bit right. The rest of it is sort of, again, we don't have that much time. You guys are all good players. You're here because of what you've done in your careers to this point. So trying to figure it out.
Cool. All right. No, I mean, so far that we've covered a lot of culture questions, leadership questions, personality questions. You've give us a nice teaser in terms of how you coach your teams in terms of a technical point of view. And that triple P is a really good acronym, penetration, poised, for us to remember. Would you like to sort of lead into your presentation of how you run your offense for us?
Well, yeah, for sure. And again, happy for people to ask questions along the way. So I will need to share my screen here, right? Share my desktop. Hopefully you guys can see that.
Yes, Coach.
Yep, no worries. And so I've been running the flow now for I don't know, maybe 12 years or so. I started when I was the head coach of the New Zealand Breakers. I'd come actually from a system that ran, I coached under a coach by the name of Ian Stacker, who ran the triangle offense. Pretty relevant or topical at the moment with The Last Dance. I'm not sure how many, if you guys are watching that, I'm sure that you are, but
the whole world is watching that religiously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great show. I had started with the triangle offense as well when I took over New Zealand, and I like it. And one of the things that for me came out of The Last Dance the other night, I think it was something like Scottie Pippen made comment that under Doug Collins, they ran a lot of things for Michael. When Phil took over and they started running the triangle, that everybody got their opportunity. They felt much more involved. And I think that's true of the triangle. I think that's true of the flow offense as well. And one of the things that's interesting, though, is people think, one of the comments that's often thrown out is, oh, it becomes much more equal opportunity. And that's kind of true, but it's kind of not true. I think whilst the movement ensures that people feel involved and they're cutting and they touch the ball, you can still manipulate it to get certain players the ball at certain times, or to put players in positions of strength and where they've got opportunity to be successful, or you can use it to manipulate the defense and get certain defenders involved in actions as well. So yes, it's equal opportunity, but it's also gives you the ability to still, I guess, dictate what you want. Now, for me, the flow offense started when I recruited a guy by the name of Kirk Penny. Played for me in New Zealand, had played in Europe for many years at a high level, and had come from most recently had been playing for Maccabi under Coach David Blatt. And when I recruited Kirk, I asked him about what he liked running and what he'd found his most success in. And he spoke about this offense that David Blatt was running. And so I went and studied that at Maccabi. And initially, my first instance of running flow offense was basically this. There was two versions that we had. We came down and, so there's the lead post, reversal post, weak side high quadrant, there's a weak side corner here, and it's good that you can't see him because that means that his spacing, which is very important, is there. And if we came in and threw it into the lead post, we'd do this, we'd hold the cutter, the weak side high quadrant guy, cut to the rim, and we'd screen away for the weak side corner guy. So that was one option. And the other option that we had as this started was that we threw it to the reversal post. So now this is the lead post. We threw it to the reversal post. Again, weak side corner spacing is key. And on the reversal post catch, we'd have cutter go through, weak side high quadrant guy, we go through, and we go to DHO to the guy in the corner. The timing, as it says there, timing speed of these cuts determines the effectiveness of the action. But that's as basic as it was when it started. And obviously it's evolved since then to have a lot of different sort of looks and wrinkles and actions to it. And most of it has evolved, it's evolved a couple of ways. One is because teams started taking stuff away, and so you needed an answer or a counter once things got taken away. And the second bit is having smart players. And again, providing an environment where you allow them to make reads and not being so set in your ways that, no, you have to do this, encouraging them to be smart basketball players. And often the players will teach you and tell you what some of the other opportunities that exist within what you're doing. And it's, again, just referring back to the skill acquisition experts, it's interesting. One of the things, I guess one of my goals when I took over as the full-time national coach was to get through our high performance system. I wanted Australia to stop being the best 5-on-0 nation in the world, and I wanted us to be the best basketball playing nation in the world. And so let's get away from running 5-on-0 offense and teach our players how to understand spacing, screening, passing, angles, all those sorts of things. And so, you know, now this is, I guess, the stock standard. Instead of the lead post being all the way down just with his positioning, or if he feels he wants to, he can now come in and set a drag screen. Patience from Paddy allows that to happen. And then again, the spacing on the weak side of the court, right? So Bogues now in the trail doesn't just come down into where he, was previously. He reads that the screen's being set on around the seam. So I need to give Paddy some room to go ahead and get over here and play out of. And so Bogues just takes his spacing a little bit more on the opposite seam. And again, good weak side corner spacing. The deeper that guy can get and the more patient that he can be, the better for everybody. And so other opportunities open up as a result. And so again, this is, I guess, the very basics of it. Again, just home base. Joey's being careful, patient, come in, set the drag screen, patient setup, good spacing on the weak side of the floor, allow that to happen. And so this is one of the keys when we first throw it to the reversal post is, and these guys actually go on probably a little bit too early for what we'd normally say, because the first thing is we have to allow this high-low look. And once the big looks off the high-low, then we should actually start the cutting action on the weak side. And this is one of the things that we always, whenever we're working with the flow, is we come back to whenever it looks a little muddy, or when it look or at the start of every campaign, invariably we end up talking to spacing. Go ahead and stay in the corner. You need to get deeper. We need to get wider. And patience. We need to slow down. Everybody just slow down. Let one part of the offense happen before the next stage unfolds. So let Bogut have a look at this first, and then go ahead, Dally, and set the down screen once you stop looking at that. And so in every campaign, I find that's something that we end up going back to. So basically the same thing. Spacing's good, early drag. And so, again, things evolve over time, right? So sometimes the game just unfolds that we got the first, the lead post decided he was going to go set a drag screen. The trail post either didn't recognize he was in trail, or where he was running, he just ends up sort of in the way. Now that can go ahead and turn into double drags. The weak side guard spacing was terrible on that, but again, just an example of allowing players to be basketball players and make reads. And so this, I guess, is what I was talking to before in terms of, so here we end up playing, we throw it to the reversal post, and Joe here is being very patient. He's letting Baines go have a look at that look to Landale. Paddy's being very patient in the corner. Obviously, Canada's decided that they were going to stay connected to those two guys. Bainesy made the read that he thought there was an advantage here. Instead of looking on here, he's gone ahead and just kicked the ball back to Daly to allow it to go into the post. And I guess, again, just the evolution. So, you know, I showed you that first clip when we threw it in the post man that Daly held, and we had Joey cut to the basket here and Bainesy screened away. One of the other, like as it evolved over time, it's like we found that actually sometimes the feeder wants to go ahead and cut baseline because he thinks he has an advantage. So it's like, all right, let's do that. So what does that mean for everybody else? And now, so Joey reads that. He just now becomes the pullover guy. Still an effective offense. And again, as it just continued to evolve over time, is that when we started, we always used to make the two guards run to the weak side of the floor, you know, the weak side high quadrant, weak side corner. And then it's like, actually, you know, does that actually help us? Is there other ways that we can be functional if that guy stays in the ball side corner? And so, I mean, like we let that guy now run to the ball side corner. You are where you are. It doesn't matter. You don't have to cross over. And so again, with the continual evolution and letting players play, one of the things then that started coming out is, all right, so as we run to reversal post, you know, teams started messing with this and obviously got used to the pattern. And one of the things that I'm really mindful of for anybody who runs flow for the first time is that you can get stuck just running around the perimeter. If, you know, it's easy to throw it to the reversal post all the time and back cut, dribble, handoff, and we just end up never getting any heat on the rim, and we need a good mix. And as everybody knows, penetration towards the basket is an important part of the game. And so we start to put in variations to mix up what happens when we throw it to the reversal post. And this one here is just the guard, rather than cutting through, goes and sets a down screen for the guy in the corner. So same action here. And again, we explore out of that, right? So Joe's been encouraged, he goes, he explores, finds he's got nothing, hits the reversal post. And now we decide that we're going to go and set that down screen. And there's one, like the guy's receiving the down screen, that guard has the right of way. So he can either cut to the ball or he can cut to the basket. Whichever way he goes, the screener goes opposite. So there's one to the ball and one to the basket. So Sobes decides to cut back door and Goulding would come back to the basketball. So this is another example of it here. Mills sets the down screen, Goulding cuts to the basket, Mills comes back to the ball, and now we space and play on the back end of that. And again, just evolution over time, right, is so just encouraging the players, and this is what I talked to before about not being so set in your ways that you have to do this. No, as a basketball player, like what we coach is spacing and reading, all right? Spacing, timing, and then read what happens and make the appropriate cut. And so here, when Lish cuts back door, I think that's Mitch McCarron in the corner. His guy starts to play on the high side of him, expecting him to come off the dribble handoff. So he takes that opportunity, makes the read. And so where's his advantage? His advantage is at the rim. So let's do that. Sorry, how do I turn off that radio? I don't know. But this is another thing, like for teams that know what's going on, is that again, they start sitting on that dribble handoff here, expecting the guard to come off. And what we discovered over time, I think CJ Bruton was the first one who played for me who did this. He was a heavily scouted guy. People that teams wanted to get the ball out of his hands. He decided the best thing to do here is I'll actually just walk my man into the defense is trying to guard the ball, which is going to create a lane for the postman to drive to the hoop. So again, it's just about providing an environment where players are encouraged to go ahead and make reads. And so I think, Ariel, this is one of the ones that you were talking about before. We got on the clinic here. So here we hit the reversal post. Mills looks like he's running his stock standard back cutting action. Creek lifts out of the corner and Mills cuts back to go ahead and set this little wedge screen to bring Landale in the post. And then post feed, cutting action. So again, it's all just concepts. Play out of the concepts and then go ahead and make reads. What's available? What's the defense giving us? How are you being played? And so this is the same thing, right? And one of the things that we do is, one of the things I do like about the offense is you can just get action to move the defense around. So here, like we go through reversal post Nick K, Goulding's already cut through, we get to the dribble handoff, and now we've moved the defense a little bit, but we can still execute all those same things on the other side of the floor to get certain people involved. Or, you know, we want Bogut to post up, obviously, rather than Nick K posting up down there. We want Mills as the back screener, all those sorts of things. So you can put people where you want to put them. It doesn't always have to happen on the first side. One of the other things that happens a lot out of this, we call it this wedge screen here, is that, sorry, so the back side of that is normally is also the continuation of that, whose Mills would step out, Bogut come and set him an on-ball screen. Some teams like here, the USA, Walker starts trying to deny Mills that catch. Bogut's got that read, or those two guys have spoken about it. You get flash action. But again, important the spacing behind it allows that all to happen.
I love that action, coach.
Sorry?
I love that action.
Yeah, it's nice action, isn't it? It's yeah, it's good action, heat on the rim.
Combination of triangle and flow.
Absolutely, that's what it is. And one of the things that started happening was, you know, teams started really trying to deny the reversal pass because they knew so much of our offense was triggered by that. And again, it's like, so what do? It's not we just talk to the players, coaching staff. Obviously, you have your ideas. What are some of the things we can do? And it's like, well, I mean, here Nick K is not being denied, but the thought process is if he's being denied, he can go ahead and just walk his man into the guy guarding the ball. So, you know, his man's in no position to help. When we first started talking about that, it's like, well, this weak side high quadrant guy looks like he's in the way. So how do we get him out of the way? It's like, maybe we should just cut him through. And then, of course, it's like, well, if we cut him through, maybe there's an opportunity for him to go ahead and screen here. And so that's what we do here. We end up, you know, Mills sets a cross screen for Baines, and then we just have stock standard cross pick, down pick action. So you got the big on the rim you can look at, you got the shooter coming off. Again, just different opportunities. And so we give all these things names, right, so that we can talk to each other. So again, here you just see the on-ball screen, Mills goes, sets a cross screen. And this time we're able to hit the big on the rim. So I was going to say, we give all these things names so that we can talk to each other and the players can talk to each other. Hey, maybe we should look more at the cross screen. Maybe we should look more at the down screen right now, the way they're playing us. Or look at the flash. But at the end of the day, this offense is best when guys come down and just play, make reads. And these are all the things that you can do, and just pick the ones that make sense given what is going on, your skill set, what the defense is doing, and those sorts of things. So again, one of the things we find a lot, of course, is once, you know, you get scouted, there's the cross screen, here's the down screen, people start trying to anticipate that, is that the slip is also often open a lot. But it all only happens because of the spacing, right? Spacing and patience, timing, let things happen. Don't be in a hurry to get to the next bit. And this is what I spoke to before, right? So we can reversal post, we just get the stock standard, home base, back cut, dribble handoff action here, just to set up the next part of it. And here we go. Now we end up running that little big cross screen on that side of the floor. And the other thing I like here is, I mean, it doesn't go there, but again, just through the freedom of the environment, is Ingles is encouraged to make reads. So he'd normally come off that down screen. He reads that he's being played to the high side, and he's starting to back cut already to the basket here. So he's actually quite open and ended up drawing the bigs defender on that. So again, environment of, so just can't emphasize enough. You know, a lot of junior coaches, I think, as you run this would say, oh, no, Joe, you're supposed to come off that down screen. That's the next phase of the offense. And I would encourage them to say, no, Joe, that's a great read. Your man was on the high side. He was cheating that you had an open lane to the basket. That's a fantastic read. And now the challenge is, all right, so Nick Kay, when he makes that read, what are you going to do? How are you going to create space? And teach that part of it rather than, oh, no, you have to come off the down screen because that's what I know how to coach. And some of that is, well, I think some of the fear of that is as coaches, it can often look a little chaotic and you feel like you don't have that much control over what is going on. But I think if you can get to that point, it gives your teams the ability to be hard to guard and, you know, make plays and play to their strengths. So I guess this is that little big cross screens messed up a little bit there, but the back end of this is why this clip's on there, is just to show you it ends up just in straight middle pick and roll with a spaced floor, right? And again, watch Nick Kay trying to get to the corner here to ensure he's got spacing, Goulding right in the corner, Ingles giving as much space as he can and play out of a middle pick and roll. So there's movement into a middle pick and roll. It's not just come down and stock standard, you know, no movement or one pass, and then we're trying to play out a middle pick and roll with the defense already set. We get some movement and hopefully have got the defense a little more connected to their own man and a little bit less worried about what's going on with the pick and roll. And the other thing I like about this is, so, you know, as I evolved with the flow offense, used to run it exclusively against man-to-man and teams would go to zone, and that's one of the things that used to mess with us. And you know, I used to be one of those coaches that, oh, now we have a zone offense. And so we go into something completely different. And I found that that was then doing exactly what the zone was designed to do. It stopped us getting any sort of rhythm in our offense. We tried to put people in different spots and we ended up being just a very heavy set space team. And so then over time, it's like, well, why don't we just try running the flow against zones as well? So it doesn't matter then. We just come down, we know what we're in. We don't care what they're in. The only thing that changes is, again, obviously the IQ of players makes a difference, but it's just who you screen. So Bogues here has read the fact that they're in a zone and screening the high guy of the zone. Mills understands that they're in a zone, and so he's going to screen the one guy who's trying to guard Baines. And as a result of those guys doing that, this guy, you know, now occupied with Dellavedova, you know, with Gasol here having to guard both Nick Kay and Joe Ingles. And again, so all these plays, also all of the flow action has its, can be successful against the zone as well. You just need to be a little bit smart with who you're screening. And so this is just another version that we run here is, again, this has just been, you know, home-based action on the first side. On the second side now, I think that's Dellavedova. He runs this little shallow cut on the second side of the floor so that, again, different ways to get some movement into middle pick and roll. So, you know, we wanted to get Della in the pick and roll, ball movement first. The weak side postman comes sprinting in immediately into pick and roll. And then, again, we space the floor. If there's a big who can't shoot on the perimeter, if he's not a three-point shooter, we will allow him to come into this, we call this short corner area on the side that the ball handler's going to. That's fine. Obviously, he takes away his driving lane there, but what he does do is open up rolling opportunities for his post buddy. And just like the action out of, you know, when we ran that wedge screen, so here you could see Mills is running that little shallow cut here. Again, we get USA chasing us. Baines flashes behind it. Mills looks to cut to the basket. Again, encouraging players to make reads, right? So normally he'd cut to the basket and Delhi would just come off on this dribble handoff. We didn't have it to Mills. And now Mills has decided actually the best thing for me to do here is maybe I'll just go and set a screen. And again, we encourage players to make those sorts of reads and play what's in front of them. You're all, you know, smart basketball players. Again, over time, one of the things that started happening was, you know, people got in the rhythm of this guard always going through either down screening or starting to run a back cut. And so we said, you know, if defenders are trying to take that away, again, read what's in front of you. If that guard wants to come off for the handoff, he can go ahead and come off for the handoff. No problems at all. And then it was about figuring out what happened behind it. We decided that postman go on and set a wide pin down for that guard in the corner. And then that guard, if he cuts through, we end up playing back off the elbow off a two-man game. So again, I guess the thing about all this is just to show over time how much this has evolved. And most of it is evolved by letting players be players and make their own reads and do what they want to do. And they will tell you or give you the answers a lot of the time. And just as the coach, giving the environment where the players are encouraged and have the freedom to do that. One of the questions I get asked a lot about flow is like, what do you find messes with the flow? This is one of the things that messes with the flow here is teams that really get into the ball handler, but in particular teams that really get into the reversal post. And so there are a few answers for that now that we've had, and I don't actually have examples of this on file, but this postman, this lead postman coming up and setting, this high ball screen for the ball handler to free him up, the reversal post then diving, the screening post coming in now into the reversal post. That's one of the ways that we can ensure we keep getting into an effective area, which is this foul line extender, just to make sure we're deep enough. The cross action that you saw before is another way that we can do that, setting that ball screen here and then getting the guard across. Then one of the other things that we do is, and it's this examples are actually sort of around the wrong way because Nick Kay is not being pressured here. But for bigs that don't like ball handling, or if you are being pressured, is again, rather than making that guy have to go into the dribble handoff, you just have the guard lift out, he can throw it and then follow with the ball screen. And again, the weak side of the floor is spacing is the most important thing. If you can shoot and you want to go shooter, no worries. If you want to go, back screen here for a shooter, no worries. If you want to down screen for a shooter, no worries. If you want to, kick it here, makes a read that he wants to go and try and seal his man up, and then he decides he's going to create a driving lane for Jason to get to the rim. And then one of the other ways, I guess, that we started dealing with teams that really sat on this pass here and started messing with our offense was we just ended up going with a wide pin down. Again, this is Goulding now is, he can either start on the ball side or you can just have this weak side high quadrant guard cut through, and Landau goes down, sets the wide pin down for Mills. And then once we get to this, we encourage them to go ahead and just play basketball. So, Bogut in the lead post, we always liked him to get up to the elbow. He's such a great passer of the basketball and makes so many good things happen that we liked him in that position. And then again, these guards were encouraged just to be hard to guard. They can hand it back, they can cut off. Bogus can come and set a ball screen. You guys can go ahead and do what you want, but make reads and make plays. So again, this part of flow only sort of evolved over the last 18 months or so. So again, it continues to evolve, as we all should as coaches. So again, we like Bogut flashing to the elbow, Delhi dives on that, player has some sort of splits, heat on the rim, good things happen for us. Similar thing here, so Goulding gets out of there and we play to that wide pin down, don't have to play through reversal post. Again, Bogut off that elbow. You guys space and play. Good stuff happens for us, and we get we get the opportunity to move the defense around a little bit, spread the floor, open up lanes to the basket. Again, space and play. And space and play, ball movement, act in the best interest of the team. And there you go. That's probably about enough video for you guys at the moment.
Well, that's excellent. And some of those that for those following like me, that's following Australian basketball, and they were able to watch breakdowns and a lot of because in YouTube a lot of coaches broke down your plays against the US and how it worked, and they can also follow that. But yeah, you mentioned against zone. I think some of the question was that. But how about against switching defense, Coach? How do you counter switching defense?
Yeah. So, and I don't have clips, but and again, all this has evolved over time, right? That's one of the things that happened to us is teams started trying to switch a lot.
Yeah.
And so if they're switching 1 through 5, I mean, then it's as simple as coming and setting that drag screen with the 5-man on the 1-man, you know, having 4, 3 and 2 spaced, throw it here, let the 5-man go ahead and roll the 1-man right to the front of the rim, and then get the ball here, and you can go ahead and penalise that sort of thing. One of the things the teams did a lot was they started switching. So, you know, let's say the 5 was down and this was a 4, and we make this pass, you know, this sort of back cut and dribble handoff action. Teams started having, you know, the 3-man catch that and the 2-man's man stand on the high side of this, and they'd switch that back cut action a lot. So what we would do is, again, this is where we really coached patience in the corner. Once we know that they're switching, the 2, instead of running his cut there, he just run a foul line cut, run just straight across the foul line, which then took this guy out of the action. And as this defender was sitting on the high side now, we could make that pass directly to him. That's why it's important that he's patient in the corner, or you start that dribble towards him and he just runs that back cut. I think we saw one of those on the video. Yeah, so that's how we penalise that most of the time. And again, we saw one of those ones on the video as well, where this guy can come up and put his defender into the guy who's trying to guard the ball, and go ahead and have him turn the corner. One of the other things I like to do against switching defense is we talk about let the rhythm of the offense find the advantage, and don't get stuck. Like, you know, I started with that 1-5, we get that, and then we try to get the high low, but that instantly stops the offense. Like, we all get stuck standing there trying to make that pass, and let the flow of the offense will find the advantage eventually. And so what I mean by that is, like, letting, you know, just run the first side, no problems. So, you know, maybe we hit reversal post, we back cut, we dribble hand off. There's been some switches in that. This guy's lifted. We run the reversal post, we back cut, we dribble hand off, and there will be a time all of a sudden where, again, the little's on the big, and we've run the dribble hand off, we go, and now this big, instead of lifting once he's got a little on him, just go ahead and step in. So as the guard comes off, now we'll find that that guy's there and there's no help because everybody's been running around and chasing around. Of course, there's that wedge screen action. Again, you can manipulate it and you get to the point where, you know, you got your 5 up here with the ball, the 1's running that, you know, normal back cut, and then he comes up, we lift the guard out of the corner, we throw it, and again, that's 1 on 5 there. So if they're going to switch that, now they've got the little there on our beat, and they've got their 5-man on our 1-man as he steps out. So there's plenty of opportunity within the scope of it. You know, that little big cross screen, great, good. You want to switch that? Good, here we go, no problems. But I think the main thing that we talk about is it's gonna, if we just run and again stay with spacing and timing, whatever we do, we'll find the mismatches, but let the offense find them. Don't get stuck trying to, you know, just milk it. And a coach said to me once, is very interesting. He's like, if the game's going against you, there's, you know, certain things that you can do. There's lots of things that you can take a timeout, you can make subs, you can change your defense. And one of the things I'd never thought about, which I thought was very interesting, he said you can sub in the biggest mismatch you can find. Put your smallest player on their biggest player. Because what invariably happens is they stop, you know, they've been flowing and running, the ball's moving, you can't stop them. Invariably, that stops because they're like, oh, mismatch. And so they start dribbling down and, oh, let's get the big guy down there with the little guy, and they get stagnant. And so that was an interesting philosophy from a coach that I, you know, listened to. Was like, oh, actually, that makes some sense. It's you know, and so offensively now I'm very conscious of not getting stagnant in those situations.
There's a question from our YouTube, the ones that's watching from YouTube, from Joe Electrics. So I think with a lot of NBA players that played for you, what was your approach? Is it a combination of the European way or American way, or how do you incorporate it into the national team system?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we tried to play the Australian way.
Of course. I
Yeah,
think it's a mix of both. Honestly, I've been following,
yeah,
that I'm a fan of yours, and actually, it's the Australian way. It's like it's a combination of both
yeah.
Australian and American way. I think you were able to merge that.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. And I think that's certainly one of the challenges for Australian basketball and perhaps basketball around the world is with the more players that we have in the NBA, and particularly as the kids go over earlier and earlier, and so they're more indoctrinated into that style of basketball, is when they come back into the national team environment, getting them to readjust to how it is that we're successful. And I think in time it'll probably shift more to the NBA style, because I mean there could be the next cycle where we have 12 Australian in the national team. There's 12 NBA based players, and so they're used to playing a certain way. And again, because the time is getting more and more reduced as to how much time you can spend with them, and so I think they'll drift more towards the to the NBA style of play. But certainly from my perspective, I mean, my parents are both Latvian, so I was indoctrinated into a European style of basketball. I always, when I played as a player, I was much happier giving up assists than I was scoring, and so I've always been a very team-orientated person, and that's, I guess, flowed through into who I am as a coach. And so I've always tried to play, put our teams in a position where we're going to share the ball and play much more team-orientated basketball. And that's, as you say, I think we've ended up in a sort of combination of both. We kind of, I'm not going to say I'm a genius, because we kind of stumbled across, the flow offense, which gives you the movement, but then also gives you the ability to get very specific in, this is how we end up in a pick and roll with Paddy Mills and Aaron Baines. And so we get some movement first, and then these two guys are going to be in the pick and roll, and that's what we want. And so you've ended up sort of with that combination of the European movement and, sharing the ball and spacing, and the bit of the stock standard NBA. We're very specific with who we want the ball, what action we want, and where we want the spacing behind it. So yeah, it's been.
Obviously, it worked wonders with the Andrew Bogut or a Joe Ingles type of player. Will it work for players that are not so gifted in reading the flow, or reading how the defense is, or
Obviously.
or do you need a Bogut or Paddy Mills or Joe Ingles to run it?
Yeah, I think, this is going back to our earlier discussion, right? Like, if you want to be a great coach, get great players. And certainly I've found in the flow, the having a big who can pass and has a really good sense for the game, like you can call an IQ or just a vision for the game, makes a significant difference. And I think leading into 2016, Bogut had been injured during our leading campaign, and we've been playing some warm-up games, and we're doing okay, but there was still something missing a little bit. And then when Bogues came back in right before the Olympic campaign, it just was like, wow, this whole thing's opened up. Like, it's just a whole different scenario with his ability to pass and read and size and just smarts and willingness to set screens and all those sorts of things. Like, it just, all of a sudden the thing just clicked, and the rhythm of it was completely new and different, and it was fun. Like, it's fun to watch and coach, and the players enjoyed playing in it. So obviously good players makes a difference. I've run this over time with obviously players at different skill levels and in different positions, and again, that's where the skill of the coach comes in to say, well, all right, with the talent that I have, these sorts of actions, or this, we're going to set way more of that away down screen and make sure that's a guard coming up. We do have, again, I actually don't run it with the national team, because you've got to limit the sort of package that you got. But with my club team, we've got some more options where the lead post gets out of there, the trail post comes in and set, we play over a little bit more pistols action. And so there's much more the guards are handling, and bigs are sort of more traditional screeners. And so I think, again, you can manipulate it, given the skill sets of the players that you have. And that's the job of the coach, right? Is to figure that bit out.
All right, Ben, there's a question from
Yep.
Wayne that you
Yeah,
want
there's a
to.
question from Wayne Padilla, I think. Coach, thanks so much thus far. Your Boomers teams are typically highlighted by your flow offense, but an aspect that gets overlooked is the toughness on the defense. And we spoke about that a little bit earlier. Can you, just to answer Wayne's question, can you speak about your three components on defense in terms of defense, transition, disruption, and box outs? Can you just explain to us why these three things are very important to you and how it could benefit all coaches really in terms of growth mindset and learning?
Yeah, sure. And I think obviously it always starts with transition, right? You can't be leaking points. You can't give up layups and open threes in transition. That's all the analytics would suggest that numbers advantages are the best time to score and all those sorts of things and the highest percentage shots. So you got to be great in that space, and it comes with having rules. And it really doesn't matter what your rules are, what you believe in. Again, every coach has their own philosophies. I personally, and we as a team go with 4 and 5 are on the glass, offensive glass. 1, 2, and 3 have to get back. If 1, 2, or 3 are good, if they're a good athlete and they think they have an opportunity to go get the offensive board, we give them the license to go. But if you go, you better get the board. And if you don't, you better make sure we don't give up a layup going the other way. And then there's obviously some structure around what happens once they get it. And, we have the closest man. The most important thing is the ball and the basket. So closest man must stop the ball or can start to contain it and try to get it to a split court as best as you possibly can. Obviously dependent on who has it and how quick they are and who you are and how quick you are defensively. And the furthest man back has to protect the basket, and he can't leave the basket at any cost. He's got it, and he ends up talking to everybody about where he wants them because he can see the entire floor. So the other 3, if you're not the ball and you're not the basket, you haul ass back and you're trying to get to the level of the foul line, and understanding that as you're sprinting back now, you're starting to match up. And we have anybody guards anybody. I'm not guarding my man in defensive transition. I'm guarding the guy who happens to be in the area that I'm sprinting back to. And then we try to, narrow the floor from there for the ball handler and then get set. And once we're set, if opportunities present to switch back to our matchups, we do that. But the first thing is to ensure that we're not leaking points in defensive transition. In terms of the disruption, and this is, again, something I've been big on over time and I think has enabled us to have some success at the international level. And it takes a real buy-in from players, right? Because it's hard. And I think, there's probably one of the best examples I can use is perhaps Lithuania with Kalnitis at the point guard spot, who's such a great player. And the entire system is so built around him having the ball in his hands in the point guard spot and playing out of horns and all these things. And so for us, when we played them, one of the things was, all right, how do we be disruptive this game? We need to find a way to get the ball out of Kalnitis' hands or to wear him down. And so, on scores, we would try to have the inbounders man deny Kalnitis the ball. If it was thrown to Kalnitis in the backcourt, we'd go and double team him and get him out, get the ball out of his hands and have his man go ahead and deny him the ball. Just so that, again, he just couldn't come down and put everybody where he wanted them and play with a rhythm. It was always going to be difficult for him to go ahead and get touches. And, it took a lot of commitment. Like Delvedova wore himself into the ground. And then, here comes the next guy, guarding him and being committed to that. And the guys on the bench understanding that's your role for this game is come in and give us 3 minutes of making his life very, very difficult and denying him touches. And so over the course of the game, obviously he's still going to get the ball back and he's going to make some plays and he's going to make, plays out of horns, but he's had to work to get the ball. Now he's got less time on the shot clock and he's starting to fatigue. And so that, just as the coach coming up with what are the 1 or 2 ways in this particular game that we need to be just painful to play against. And it's different for different teams. And then, the box out is the box out. It kind of speaks for itself in terms of when they shoot it, what are we doing? And invariably, I don't know about you guys, but every team I've ever coached at every level, Everyone screams box out, but still it's difficult to get people to do it. And so interestingly, with the Bullets this year, I changed my coaching. I've been coaching for 20 plus years. And the first time in my life, I thought I'd try something different. And I said, we're not going to scream box out anymore. We're going to say, come up with the ball. And so whatever that means for you, if you're a little on the big and your only chance of doing that is boxing out, box out. If you're an athlete and you think you can go and get the damn thing, go and get it. I don't care, because I've screamed box out for 20 years and nobody, like, it's still 95% of people don't do it, and people come flying in over the top and all those sorts of things that we know. So I tried something different this year, and the reality was we were, like, as defensive rebounding percentage, we were still third or fourth in the league at, I think, 71% or something like that. Like, so it wasn't any better or worse than it's been in the past. So who knows? But again, keep trying stuff. Got to keep evolving.
There's a coach here from Singapore. Just he wants to know what were your like concept going against USA and Spain. What was your key points, defense concept? Just briefly, what's your what was your point of emphasis when you played them?
Yeah, so certainly against the USA, obviously, one of the things was not allowing them to become a transition team. That's where, athletically, unbelievably talented and causes real issues. So, how we do that, obviously defensive transition rules, but firstly by taking great shots, is ensuring that we didn't spray up any garbage, took care of the ball offensively, no turnovers that led to easy scores for them, because that was a real area of the game where we thought that they could hurt us. So, and I thought we did a pretty good job in both those two spaces. And then defensively, again, about how we were going to be disruptive. And again, they were pretty point guard dependent and heavy, particularly Kemba Walker was a big key of what they did. And so trying to keep the ball out of his hands as much as possible. Again, we went and double teamed them, particularly when Plumlee was in the backcourt with him, like go and double team, let him throw it back to Plumlee and make Plumlee have to go and get it to somebody else, just to take time off the shot clock. And then the big one with them outside of that was, what we're going to do in the pick and roll situation. What shots are we prepared to live with? They're a talented basketball team. And so what was our strategy in terms of shots that we would live with? And like 99.9% of the world these days, it was the mid-range pull-up. And Kemba Walker, game one, hurt us with that. And, we got a lot of flack and a lot of criticism for that, not making an adjustment as a coaching staff. We believed that was still the best way to do it, and we stuck with it in game two in the exhibition series. And, surprisingly enough, in game two, the statistics went where the statistics often go, back to form. And we ended up being able to sort of eke out a win in that game. So that was certainly it from a defensive point of view, and offensively, again, getting the great shots, making the ball do some work. And we had some targets that we wanted to pick on for them defensively as well. And I thought for the most part, we were able to do a pretty good job of that. I mean, Spain's a really talented basketball team. They're hard to disrupt. And it's transitions. I guess it ended up being very similar. Defensive transition was a big one. How we were going to disrupt Ricky Rubio in particular, running the team from the point guard spot, and what we're going to do in the pick and roll situation. And one of the things that happened in that semi-final game was, I think Marc Gasol, pretty sure for the tournament, was 22% from the three-point line. So I think he wasn't shooting the three well. I know he can shoot threes, but in that tournament, he wasn't shooting threes particularly well, and might have been 18 or 19% going in the semi-final game. And so obviously that influenced part of our pick and roll strategy and allowing him to pick and pop. And he made a couple of big ones when it mattered. And that's hoops, right? That's the way that it goes. And similar thing offensively, we wanted to ensure that we weren't turning over. I think Spain, one of the things that Spain perhaps is underrated on is their defense. Like, they're really good defensively in terms of again, they got a group that's played together for many years and they understand each other and they do some things to really be disruptive, and they're smart. They read off one another. If someone goes and randomly double teams the ball, they all, you know, shoot gaps behind it and they're ready for it. And so they can be quite disruptive defensively. And so that was part of the challenge of being ready for that and giving our guys license to take that on. And again, like every situation, I guess there was a few particular matchups that we wanted to pick on and try to exploit and through our flow. So that's sort of those game plans in a nutshell, hopefully.
You broke our heart, coach. You broke our heart that game.
And mine.
Well, there's a question from our BCAP president, our coaches association president. How old were your players when you started with the Boomers, and how many were in the pool? Running this efficiently definitely required a lot of time and evolution of the flow, and it helped a lot the Australian players to get noticed in the world stage. And I think a lot of credit goes to you. So how many was in the pool, or how young were you guys started it?
Yeah. So in terms of the national team, we only run it from 2013, and at that stage, the reality was we only had 16 players in the pool, and part of that was that we identified that we had limited time, and so we accepted that we might get some of the selections wrong, but that we wanted to spend as much time as we possibly could as a team together, growing our philosophies offensively and defensively. And so we started with 16, and in 2013 we actually brought Ben Simmons in as a 17-year-old. I think at that stage he was one of the 16 guys that we brought in. Dante Exum was part of that group as well. He was an 18-year-old, and you know, that was Ingles and Mills, I guess 7 years ago. So they were in their early 20s at that stage. Bogut didn't spend much time with us until 2015. He came in, and then the likes of the Ryan Brockhoffs, again, I think he was early 20s at that stage. So probably mid to early 20s, most of them. And then we've spent the better part of 7 years together growing as a team. So yeah, it's been a fun ride with those guys. Obviously, you know, guys that come in and out along the way. So, you know, you start with 16 and the next campaign, it's, you know, guys are injured or not available. And so the next crop's coming through. And one of the things that I think has been really cool about the new qualification system, you know, so obviously from 2017 through to now with the NBA guys not being available for those qualification windows, is we've had an opportunity to work with a whole bunch of new guys. Like there's been another pool of 20 to 25 guys now that are going through the qualification rounds with us that have been introduced to the Boomers, I guess, culture and system and how we play together. And hopefully some of those guys will get an opportunity to play in 2021 Tokyo Olympics, because some of them are really good players and have shown what they can do on the international stage. So it's been a fun journey.
All right, Ben, there's a question.
Coach, you know, thanks for answering all the questions. One of the questions that keeps getting asked a lot on our Q&A session: what was your first impression of the Gilas Pilipinas team when you first saw them? You know, in terms of their talent and their ability, what was your first impression?
Yeah, I mean, what immediately stood out, I think, is the energy with which they played, how hard they played, and the passion with which they played. And I really liked those aspects and those those attributes with which they played. I thought they were really skilled as well. And one of the things, I guess, that I had not been aware of or had underappreciated before I got on the international stage was just how big basketball is in the Philippines. And it's just awesome to be involved in an environment like that and to see how much it means to everybody within the Philippines. And I think that translates into the national team. You can see that there's a passion and a pride, and they know they're representing their country and themselves, but they really commit to the game. And you see again a high level of skill that only comes because they've obviously played the game for a long time. You know, they're doing some things that it's like, well, you know, he's obviously picked up a basketball when he was 5 and been playing ever since, because some of that stuff that the guys on that team are able to do are very impressive. And I actually really enjoy watching them play. And again, it's the passion and energy and just, yeah, how hard they play and the skill level, I think is kind of cool. So yeah, I was impressed with them when I first saw them, and then when I knew that we had to play them in the qualification series, I was anxious that they'll be tough to beat.
Coach, there's some questions also. Would you ever consider coaching the Philippine national team if ever that comes up?
Well, all options always on the table, right? As a coach, you always gotta keep your options open, because it's a profession that is. I mean, it is what it is. You got to go where the jobs are, and the jobs are tenuous. And you know, every coach is a day away from being fired, and so there's always. Every option is always something that you explore.
You think the flow will work in the Philippines, for the Philippines, or just how do you think? Well,
I mean,
most of the teams are running it here also.
Yeah, I've run it in many different environments with many different players, and again, I think it can be successful again as long as it's encouraged for the players to play to their strengths and to make reads. And then the skill of the coach, again, is to ensure that the players are playing in the positions, or you're running the variations that most suit the guys that you have. So I think it's more about players being able to read the game, but it's the fundamentals of the game, right? It's being able to read what is the defense doing, where's my advantage, what's my teammate done, and how do I space off this? And having the patience to do that, and also being willing to play as a team. And I mean, we've had that discussion at boomer level, is sometimes in a game, you're the guy that cuts through the corner, and that's all you do for this particular offense. But for the good of the team and the team that we're playing against, that is how you contribute most in this particular game, and you've got to be prepared to do that. You won't get many touches. And so as long as guys are prepared to buy into what's best for the team, then anything can be successful, really. It's about playing basketball and being spaced and making basketball plays and reads.
When is Ben Simmons going to play for Australia, or is he?
That's a question you need to ask Ben Simmons. It's one of those things. Obviously, I no longer coach the national team. Brett Brown is now the coach of the national team, and he coaches Ben on a daily basis. So hopefully that relationship enables them to have good communication, and gives Ben the confidence and, I guess, a desire to go ahead and play for Australia. But it would be wonderful, obviously, for the national team to get a player of Ben's talent involved in the Olympic campaign.
So maybe that's the window there. The Philippine national team doesn't have a coach also now, and you just ended your stay with the Boomers.
Speaking like a true agent, Coach Ariel.
But yeah,
Need to be aware of what I say. Obviously, in this environment,
they're in search now. Our federation is searching for our next national team coach. So I'm sure some of them are listening in here, and I know our head boss Al Panlilio. I sent him the YouTube link of this webinar.
Well, you know where to find me, Ariel. You know where to find me.
Yeah, all right, coach. Any more final 2 questions before we wrap it up? I know We went over time with 1 hour and a half, Coach, and we would like to thank you. But last two questions. Jimmy, Coach Jim, do you have any more questions, Coach Jim?
No, I'm good, Coach. Again, Coach, thank you for the time. This has been amazing. So thank you.
Appreciate
I
it.
got a question. Yeah.
All right, Ben.
Coach Andre, can you just tell us about just two questions sort of loaded into one? Tell us about the evolution of your grassroots program. Like in the 90s, we were talking offline that, you know, how far Australian basketball has come, you know, 8th back in the 90s, and then now you're medal contender for the gold medal. What has changed? So the first question is, what has changed about your grassroots program over the years, you know, in terms of for the better? And how did that make your job easier when you were Boomers coach from 2013 to 2019?
Yeah, I mean, I think Australia's had a pretty strong grassroots program for many years now, and I think it perhaps started with Adrian Hurley and Patrick Hunt and the establishment of the AIS program in Canberra. And what that did was give I guess an opportunity for a couple of things. One is to firstly bring all the best kids into one center and give them intensive basketball coaching for 12 months of the year, and give them strength and conditioning and understanding on how you look after your body and how you eat right and do all those sorts of things. But not so that existed then in one center, but as a federation, then that center was also able to disseminate that information across the entire nation. And so in each of the states, then they started to appoint high performance managers for basketball, which hadn't existed previously, and coordinated all of the athletes in that area. And again, the information then filtered down to the coaches who were coaching the kids. And there's a lot more, there are a lot more coaching clinics and programs. And the federation was giving them direction on this is what we want to teach, and this is how we teach it, and this is how we build the skills within the athletes. And I think all that obviously takes time to cement and to have an impact. But with that, or I guess in combination with that, the other thing that happened was the popularity of basketball grew within Australia. And so suddenly we were attracting more athletes to the sport. And obviously through weight and numbers, the more athletes you've got, as long as you've got the systems in place to go ahead and give them opportunity and education, then you got more opportunity for better, you know, a greater number of good players to come through. And I think that's what sort of, you know, now we're seeing the culmination of that work that was put in 20 years ago to establish all those things. And we've seen the culmination of the popularity of the sport within Australia, and more players playing. That's naturally filtered up into having us more players to select from, and having a bit more success on the international stage. And you know, from I guess the national team point of view, that's the national coach is so dependent on the system, right? That's producing the players. Again, you walk in, like, you know, I'm not going to walk into camp 3 weeks before we play and make Paddy Mills a better player. That's not what's going to happen. He's a better player because of all the work that's gone in before and through his junior career, and all the junior coaches and the federation and what they've put into him, his time in, you know, the professional leagues, and every coach that's spent time with him, and all the time that he's put on the court. That's why he's a good player. So as the national coach, you are you're a function of the talent, of all the work that's gone before, and then the talent that's in front of you because of all that work that has gone before. And then your job is to try to put, you know, mold all that talent that you got in front of you into some sort of cohesive unit that has the opportunity to be successful given the skill sets that they have. So yeah, as the national coach, you're really dependent on that. And I'm very fortunate that we had some people with some good vision that, you know, 25, 30 years ago, who established the AIS program and the broader curriculum for our high performance basketball program. And it just took a number of years for that to get through. And I guess the other thing is, the NBL, we, established our own professional league, which gave local play, the local kids somewhere to aspire to, and then a professional league where they could continue to evolve and grow and become better basketball players. We all know it makes a big difference if a player is able to be a full-time basketball player, get paid enough to do that, and so he can work on his craft every day. He can get in the weight room, he can look after his body and do all those things, versus he has to work from 9 to 5, and then he sprints in and takes his suit and tie off, and now he's trying to practice from 6 till 7:30 and then go home and find something to eat. So the evolution of the NBL as a legitimate league, I think that certainly helped us as well.
Yeah, the NBL's got a lot stronger league, and now as you mentioned. Final question, Ben?
No, I'm all good,
Great.
Coach.
All right. So again, in behalf of the whole Filipino coaches community, Coach, we'd like to thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing your knowledge. I know there's more to be asked and more to be discussed, but for the limited time, but you were able to make yourself available and make yourself explain us how the boomer system worked for you and how it worked for your teams. And I would like to thank you. Can you give us final words, Coach?
Appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'm always humbled that people will sit and listen to what I have to say, and I enjoy sharing. And I just thank you for the opportunity to be on here. And I wish everybody well in their respective journeys. Enjoy the process. As we said before, it's a wonderful opportunity we've been given here to change the lives of the people that we coach. So embrace it, enjoy it, flourish in it. Don't be afraid to experiment. Care about the people that you're with. But again, thanks everybody for listening. I hope you got something out of it, and we'll see you around.
Good session. Very good session. Yeah.
We did. And I'd like to mention also, I'd like to thank Coach CJ Bruton, who's an former Australian great player, is now his assistant with his team. And of course, for making this happen also, and for, giving me coaches information. And thank you so much, Coach CJ, for the connect. Again, we'll have another session at 6 p.m. with Coach Pascal Mures, Belgian coach. So we'd like to see you all again, and thank you so much for attending. And again, we have a program to help the frontliners of the Pasig General Hospital. Do visit the Facebook page of Blackwater Elite. Again, this is brought to you by Hoop Coaches International and in cooperation with Blackwater Elite. Thank you so much, coaches. And there's an ongoing auction in our Facebook page also for that fundraising, and do check out our Facebook page with Hoop Coaches International. Thank you so much, and God bless. Stay safe. Stay safe, Malaysia. Ben Ibrahim. Stay safe, Dr. Teddy there, and all the way from Sydney. Stay safe and God bless, Coach Andre. Thank you.
Thanks, God. All the best.
Thanks, Coach. Andre.
Thank you, coaches. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks,
Thank
Jimmy.
you, Coach.
Bye.
Thanks, Teddy.
Take care, Coach.
Bye.
Take care.